waiting for? Presenting sponsors.
And GOP incumbent Senator Marco Rubio not only won the state, but also in usually blue Miami-Dade County. In Tampa, Eben Brown, Fox News.
With Tropical Storm Nicole forecast to reach hurricane strength on Wednesday, Florida is bracing for its first November hurricane impact in nearly 90 years.
We have not seen a hurricane on the eastern seaboard of Florida since November 1935. That system, when it hit Miami as a Cat 2, it was called the Yankee Hurricane. World War II was amping up. The first Major League Baseball night game in May of 1935. FDR creating Social Security, and the state of Florida, only 1.6 million residents at that time. 34 counties in a state of emergency declared by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and this storm expected to come in very early Thursday morning. People should be on guard of the water that could be pushing in as Nicole intensifies.
Robert Ray of Fox Weather in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Wall Street Tuesday, the Dow gained 333 points, NASDAQ up 51. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You know, I start the show that way every day because I want everyone out there in our international radio listening audience to know that we value the United States Constitution, constitutional rights, individual freedom and liberty. And we're conservative here on Tall Tales. So if that's what you're looking for, man, you are in the right place. But if it's not what you're looking for, well, you're still in the right place because you need a little bit of learning. And that's what we're going to provide today, starting right out with Zemi Ikotny. I do the best that I can here with the raw material that I have with Zemi Ikotny, but talk about trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. That's exactly what I have to do with these editorials because they are called editorials, but they don't really read like editorials. Today we have a let's all work together, why can't we all just get along type of editorial, which I will read and then criticize roundly. The days following the Guam election can be tough. For many, the past few months have been busy as candidates and supporters walk the village streets, knocking on doors, hoping to sway votes and get constituents to learn more about their teams. Guam elections are hard work, requiring days and months of sacrifice from committed volunteers who will stand in the pouring rain and blistering heat to push their candidate's message. Today, some will begin the process of putting this election behind them. Such is the nature of the Democrat process. Only a few will advance to the next term. But today is also a time to start the healing process, to put away the negative campaign advertisements and move forward. Rodney King, why can't we all just get along? A majority has spoken. Leadership has been chosen. It's time for Guam to rally behind our leaders, the new faces and the old. Allow the chosen few to take their posts and give them time to carry out their promises and implement the changes needed to make Guam better.
Changes?
Changes, yeah.
I don't see no stinking changes.
Really. And if our quality of life remains unimproved and no steps are being taken to resolve our challenges, the opinion section is here to vent your frustrations. Oh, wow. Make recommendations and call for change. Democrat, Republican, or Independent, it's time to put ideological differences aside and work toward real solutions to restore our once vibrant economy, build a better education system, and improve the way we care for our sick. It's time for rhetoric to take a back seat. It's time for comprehensive planning and real solutions to take center stage. We are well in our way to economic recovery. It's time for our leaders, old and new, to share a message of unity to their supporters, to remind us all that building a better, stronger Guam is a task we must take on together. To all candidates, teams, and supporters who threw their names and hats in the ring, thank you for stepping up to serve Guam. To the candidates who will take the oath and serve in January, may your campaign promises and commitments bring us closer to a better Guam. Yeah. Well, obviously I don't see it that way. The fact that some of the people that I wanted to win did win, and we'll get into that. We'll spend most of the show today talking about the election and my recap and autopsy of the election. So some of the folks that I wanted to win did. Some of the folks I didn't want to win didn't. And the reason that I didn't want them to win is because I did not like the way they use their government offices. And they're not going to change. They're not going to change the way they use their government offices. And I'm not just going to fold up my tent and say, well, yeah, I don't like it. I think it's wrong. I don't think it's good government. But the Daily News said, now we all got to be working together. I'm not going to do that. I think that's silly. I think it's short-sighted. I suggest that it shows a total misunderstanding of how democratic societies work. Because, you must always have what the Brits call the loyal opposition. You have the party in power, and then you have the party that's out of power. And the party that's out of power acts as a check on the party that's in power. And through subtle and not so subtle ways, tries to move the party that's in power in a direction closer to the direction that the party that's out wants to go. This is what's called consensus. And I've defined consensus before. Consensus is a situation where nobody gets what he wants, but everybody gets what he can live with. And if the loyal opposition folds up its tent and says, well, they won the election, therefore we got to shut up and we can't object, we're not going to have consensus. We're going to have something ultimately that no one can live with. So I'm not going to do that. Please ignore what that editorial said. In fact, you can't go too far wrong by ignoring almost everything the editorial page says, because they never say anything that's thoughtful, in-depth, hard-edged, or worthwhile. Hello, Daily News.
You know, we've been hearing a lot of rhetoric from the national media about the death of democracy if you don't vote one way or the other way, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't hear so much here on Guam, but it is amazing that the party, the Democratic Party, who's been doing this rhetoric and narrative of the death of democracy, wants you to be quiet as soon as they win.
Exactly.
Now shut up and be quiet and vote our way because
Yes.
democracy.
Yeah, this, if the Republicans win, it's going to be the end of democracy. Yeah. And of course, democracy is kind of like allspice. You can put it on almost any food, and it's guaranteed to make everything taste better. So when the Supreme Court overruled Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs decision, the Democratic pundits were screaming, "This is a blow to democracy." Because what the Supreme Court said is, us nine folks here in black robes are not going to make the decisions that belong with the popular branches of government. Now, popular doesn't mean, oh, man, that guy's really popular. Popular is a derivative of the same root word that the word people comes from. So the popular branches are the elected branches. The United States Congress is the popular branch of our government. The president, not so much. The Supreme Court, not at all. The Supreme Court is a dictatorship. So when the Supreme Court said, we're not going to do this anymore on this abortion thing, it belongs with the popular branches, with the state legislatures. That was an extremely democratic decision, but you wouldn't hear that from the Democrat Party. Oh, it's the end of our democracy. They're destroying a woman's right to choose. So it's a good thing you're listening to Tall Tales because, we straighten these things out. I was just going through some of my photos here, and it reminded me that I got to write a letter to some of my friends back in the Badger State, some of my so-called liberal friends or right-wing friends. And it reminded me of a chat that I had with some Democrats back in Wisconsin. Just hang on for just a second while I see if I can find this picture. Yeah, I did. I found it. And this was a large sign posted in the window of Democrat headquarters in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And it said, "You may be a Democrat if." Sounds like they copied my Tall Tales commercial, doesn't it? And they say things like, you believe in equality. You support protecting our planet Earth. You believe in affordable health care for all. If you do, you may be a Democrat. You support common sense gun laws. But the number one on the list, the top one on the list is this. You may be a Democrat if you support voting as a constitutional right. I saw that, and of course, I read the Constitution. I study the Constitution. I try to learn as much as I can about the Constitution, and I carry a copy with me. And I quote it frequently on this show. So when I saw that, I went inside and I said, "Hi, I just thought I'd stop in and comment on your sign out there. You may be a Democrat if. And I guess you don't know this, but there is no constitutional right to vote. So they looked at me like I had two heads, or like I was a conservative, which of course I am. And it was, oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks for your help, sir. Have a nice day. And that was that. But there is no constitutional right to vote. Get your Constitution out, and if you find a place in the Constitution that says a United States citizen has a right to vote in any election, then I will take my tall tales hat off to you, because it just ain't there.
Maybe in the spirit of a living Constitution, Bob.
Yeah. Well,
they are right because they believe that. That's why they're Democrats.
Exactly. It's kind of like, even if you're born with male plumbing, if you really believe you're a female, you can be a female. And if you're a Democrat, if you really believe there is a constitutional right to vote, then chances are that you would be right on that for the same twisted thought process. Okay, let's take a look at the card and see what we've got on the card for today. I have, of course, Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. I've got Jungle Watch versus Lou and others. I got it in the card. Jungle Watch versus Lou et al. E-T-A-L, period. A little Law and Order music here, Jose. We're all familiar with the abbreviation et cetera, right? ETC, et cetera, which means and so forth. Another really handy one that lawyers use is et al, E-T-A-L, period, which means and others. So the first item on the card is Jungle Watch versus Lou and others. Next, I've got What Happened versus the Daily News. As usual, the Daily News got the election story wrong. And then I've got Jim Moylan versus Hank Johnson. I've got KOAM versus the others. I've got Klaus Schwab versus the West. Klaus Schwab is Mr. Davos, Mr. Great Reset. Yeah, Mr. One World Government. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. And then I've got Troy versus GMH, which is a really important story, but I'll get to it after we get through the election stuff. Starting out with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism, I've gone into, orange versus red, and I've used the whole systemic racism thing where Zerzan was basically canceled by the Daily News because he said what people call red rice is really orange rice. And I put together this. So the narrative here, the word, let me have the side camera, Jose. Yeah, the word is orange, but the colors of the letter are red. And here the colors of the letter are orange, but the word says red. So that's the narrative versus the truth. The narrative is that the rice that you see at the fiesta is red. The actual truth is it's orange, right? So you and I were chatting a little bit before the show about colors, and
yeah,
you told me something I didn't know.
Well, I asked you about today's title because it just dawned on me that Guam proves Zerzan correct. The red wave that everyone was talking about, especially the Republican Party on Guam, turned out to be orange.
Well, you got a foundation you got to lay there, Jose,
right.
Before
now,
that makes any sense.
We know that campaigns usually attribute a certain color to identify themselves.
Yeah.
And the Lou Leon Grotenauer campaign is orange and blue. And so red turned out to be orange.
So Lou's campaign color is orange.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And the Republicans have been talking about a red wave since for at least a year.
Well, on Guam since at least 2 days ago.
Yeah, we've been talking about a red wave. So actually, the red wave turned out to be orange.
Zerzan's correct.
So once again, Paul Zerzan called it. Yeah. He always makes the sign.
Amazing.
He makes the sign of the Z.
I didn't believe in him that much, but I'm a true believer now.
Yeah. Okay, so Jungle Watch versus Lou and others. This popped up in Jungle Watch today. If you don't go to Jungle Watch, you're missing something. JungleWatch.info on the internet. JungleWatch.info. And it's a blog. Most of the blog is about Catholicism, but not all. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. And if you live on Guam, Catholicism is one of the really important topics because like 85% of the folks on the island are Catholic, and the Catholic Church has an awful lot of influence on what happens and what doesn't happen. So my tip for today is if you're not reading Jungle Watch, you need to go there and check it every couple days. So here's Jungle Watch today. That an unborn child is a human being is no longer the issue. Science has long demonstrated that the unborn child is not, quote, potential life, as Rowe termed it, but the real, living, growing human person. The issue now is who can kill that child and when. That's the only issue. And the Supreme Court said that it's up to you, that is the states. In Guam, given who we just reelected, apparently Guamanians support not only killing an unborn child all the way until birth, but even after the child is born to a mother who doesn't want to be a mother, per the governor's testimony to and in opposition to a bill mandating normal medical care for a child who survived a failed abortion. And of course, you see that and video of that testimony every Friday. You know what we're talking about. This is not to say good or bad. This is to say this is Guam, one of the world's most, quote, Catholic populations per capita. We need to stop lying to ourselves. Guam is not, quote, pro-life. Guam is pro-death. Over and over again, the majority has voted for death. And we just did that again yesterday. But not only are the majority of Guam voters pro-death in the womb, they are pro-self-extermination, since nearly 2/3 of abortions are of Chamorro children. Well, the Chamorro population of Guam has sunk to less than 30%. So I put this on the card. It's not only Jungle Watch versus Lou, but et al. And others. And the others are the 16,000 plus people that voted for Lulian Guerrero, who, whether they knew it or not, whether they liked it or not, cast a vote for abortion because she is the most upfront, out in front, pro-abortion governor probably in the whole country. She has brought Calamity Jane Flores on board. Calamity Jane, we all know, recruited Calamity and the governor recruited Canishiro and Radu to come over here to get licensed to practice medicine on the island so they could be the plaintiffs in an ACLU suit to make it easier to do a chemical abortion. Jade made no bones about going out and beating the bushes trying to find an abortionist to come to Guam. So, you know, for Catholics, abortion is anathema. It is a mortal sin. It can never, ever be tolerated. And one who has an abortion, one who performs an abortion, one who aids and abets in the procurement of abortion, one who advocates abortion, is excommunicated setete dei. You know, you don't need the bishop to mumble or anything like that. The mere fact that you're a pro-abortion means you're no longer in community with the Catholic Church. So you 16,000 plus folks that voted for Lou, pro-abortion, can't be any other way.
Can I channel my inner Hope Cristobal and call Calamity Jane, you colonizer, you murderer?
Yeah.
Does that fit? No?
Yeah. Yeah, she is a colonizer. She came here because of the systems of systemic racism. Yeah. True enough. So, once again, Jungle Watch.
You know, that's the thing I think we need to come to terms with here on Guam. Let's admit it. Let's admit it that, number one, we really don't care for the future of the Chamorro, whether you spell it with a capital H or not. It's the fact that we support a pro-death leadership or candidates or even a legislature who is proclaimed pro-death. Just look at the line of legislatures we voted in yesterday. I don't think we really like ourselves.
Seems like it, doesn't it, Jose?
And I don't understand why.
Yeah. I'm having a little trouble with Facebook here. Bear with me for a second. I hate it when a computer does a favor for me and pops up a window that I don't want, and then I can't get rid of it. And that's exactly what I'm looking at right now. And because of that, I can't see Facebook, and I want to make sure that I give ample time for any comments that pop up here. David Dinsman says, Jose Martinez, yeah, too many yellow cowards couldn't be bothered to come out and vote. They shifted it from red to orange. And let's see, Gina Marie Tenorio. Well, I'll come back to this first break. Right now, I've got somebody in the green room that wants to talk about, let's see here, it's Betty, and she wants to comment on Lou LG. Go for it, Betty.
Hi, Bob. I guess not really Lou, but her slogan. I never thought about it, but a friend of mine said, you know, her slogan literally is just like a gamble. You're all in. Like, would you want to gamble, like, everything and just go all in?
Throw all your chips in the pot.
Put all your chips in the pot and then just see what happens. I'm like, people just are sort of like, I don't know. And I'm listening to you about this abortion thing. You're right. And you guys are so right. All those people that voted, I'm sure some of them are Catholics, but can they really even call themselves that? Amazing.
Yeah, or else they don't pay enough attention to know what's really going on. And I don't know which is the more serious. Because to have beliefs that you don't act on is not a whole lot different from having no beliefs at all. You know, there are three Latin words that come into play here: lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi. As you pray, so shall you worship. As you worship, so shall you believe. As you believe, so shall you live. And for Catholics, we're hoping that they live Catholic lives. And you can't be pro-abortion. You can't sign up for this. Well, I'm really anti-abortion, but I believe in a woman's right to choose. You can't do that. So anyhow, Betty, that's an interesting observation. All in with Lou and Josh. So the blackjack dealer is dealing and you've got a stack of chips in front of you, you don't know what your whole card is, but you're going to push that whole stack forward and keep your fingers crossed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. Thank you for letting me chime in.
Okay, good talking to you, Betty.
Then again, a lot of gamblers call in when they're able to count cards, or they're the ones that shuffle the deck.
That's true. Okay, so let's go on to what happened versus the Daily News. Now, okay, let's take a short break here.
Looking for a boost in leadership? Live to Lead is back. Guam's #1 leadership event is coming November 29th at the Hyatt Regency Guam. It's the 8th annual global simulcast with 5 world-class speakers led by John C. Maxwell. We'll have leadership activities at the table, and you'll get a plan to jumpstart 2023. It's an exciting and energizing day to reset and recharge. Get all the details at livetoleadguam.com. That's live, the number 2, leadguam.com. Live2leadguam.com. Live to Lead is brought to you by Atkins Kroll, the Guam Chamber of Commerce, Guam Contractors Association, the Guam Daily Post, and 93.3 FM, The Point. Get the details and the lowest possible ticket prices right now at livetoleadguam.com. I'm Jerry Roberts, and I approve this message.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, I'm looking at a story that ran in this morning's Daily News, and this is what the headline, how the headline reads. More familiar faces head to 37th Guam legislature. Now, of course, we know that the guy the reporter who wrote the story doesn't do the headlines, but that's a misleading headline. That's really not the news. 5 new folks came in. A third of the membership changed. Much of the next batch of lawmakers selected by voters will arrive in office with experience next year based on the unofficial results. Unlike 2020, when every lawmaker elected had served before, there are new faces headed to the 37th Guam legislature. All but 5 of those who made the cut in the race have sat in office before. So 10 incumbents, or 10 people who have been in the legislature before, but 5 newcomers. To me, that's the story. The fact that there were 5 newcomers, and that's Malfunction, Tom Fisher, Roy Kanata, William Parkinson, and Dwayne San Nicolas. 5 new faces. The majority now held by the Democrat Party will grow. 9 of the top 15 are up from 8. Speaker Terlahi was again the top vote getter, etc. Pito Terlahi was bounced. Montesilva didn't make it, etc. But, the focus of this story is wrong. It's not we're getting the same old folks back. What we're seeing is we're getting some new folks here that I think you could probably say could not have been expected to win. I'm going to go into an in-depth analysis in a few minutes, but I just wanted to point out here that don't look to the Daily News for anything like analysis or actually for much of anything except left-wing cartoons. Okay, next I've got Jim Moylan versus Hank Johnson. And a website called Not the Bee, and not the Babylon Bee, picked this up. For the first time since 1993, the island of Guam has selected a Republican as its non-voting delegate to Congress. Here's a sign of a red wave I don't think any of us saw coming. So Doug Moylan is the leading edge. Jim Moylan is the leading edge of the red wave. He's the first Republican to be elected to the Congress. And the story goes on to say, for the first time in nearly 4 decades, the U.S. territory of Guam has gone to the right side of the aisle. Just like that, the calls from Democrats to make Guam a state have suddenly ceased. A little bit of facetiousness there, right?
Was that them or you?
That's them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense because the Democrats want Puerto Rico to become a state, and the Democrats want the District of Columbia to become a state, and I think they want Glacier National Park to be a state also because most of the people there are Democrats. It's got nothing to do with good government. It's just partisan politics. And then the Washington Examiner explains the U.S. territory sends one non-voting delegate to Congress, and the delegate had always been a Democrat going back to 1993. That's no longer true, as Republican James Moylan defeated his Democrat opponent and became the first GOP pickup in Congress and just the second Republican ever sent to Congress by the island. Moylan had trailed in exit polls by 13 points, but won by 5, attesting to the accuracy of McNinch's exit polls. The island's Democrat governor held on, though she won by 11 points compared to the 24 points she led by in exit polls.
See, again, we don't hear this except for in the Washington Examiner.
Exactly. We don't get that from Ron McNinch, right?
Or the Post or the PDF.
Exactly, yeah. And Democrats gained a seat in the territorial legislature. Guam voters were apparently content with their Democrat Party, but not the National Democrat Party. Thank goodness the island didn't tip over and the Republicans surged in the polls. I got another article here. This is the first one I saw. This one came out from the Gateway Pundit. Just in, Guam finally flips. Elects Republican as delegate to the U.S. House, delegate to the U.S. for the first time in 30 years. Republican James Moylan defeated former Speaker Judith Wampat 52.2 to 47.2. James Moylan is Guam's first Republican to win this seat in approximately 30 years. And then here's a post. Guam finally flipped. Quote, Guam finally flipped joke spread across social media in reference to dummy Democrat Hank Johnson's previous statements. Hank Johnson, representative from Georgia. The island of Guam is finally flipped. Hank Johnson's dream of flipping the island finally came true. And oh my gosh, this is Tom, says Guam did tip over. So what this is about is that Hank Johnson, a representative from Georgia, at a hearing when we were talking about the buildup on Guam, said that he was worried because if the United States put too many people and too much stuff on the island might tip over and capsize. And he is still getting earned media out of that. It still comes up all the time. Now, it's interesting that the guy's name is Johnson. We have Johnsons on the island. They're a haughty bunch. You know, the whole idea of Johnson supremacy is not something that needs to be explained if you're a Johnson. But there he is, Hank Johnson, the standard bearer for the Johnsons. Okay, now going back to how badly the Daily News missed it, I've got KUAM. Next item on the card here is KUAM versus the others. KUAM was this morning when I climbed out of the sack at 5:30 and went to their website. They had all the results in. The Post hung it up apparently about 2 o'clock in the morning. The Daily News had the senatorial results, but drew the wrong conclusions from it. I think the Pacific, as were the Pacific News Center, was still looking around for Neil Weir's press release, so they would know what to print. But let's just kind of work down the slate. So we had, I said 16,000 earlier. It's actually 18,381 people voted for Lulian Guerrero. 14,620 voted for Felix Camacho. And my analysis is that if you're going to take an incumbent down, if you're the challenger and you want to take an incumbent down, you have got to take the gloves off. You've got to throw some punches and you've got to land some blows because the incumbent has so many advantages. If the incumbent has the sniffles, it gets into the newspaper. No matter what the incumbent does, it's always earned media. And it's just human nature. The more you see a name, the more you see a face, the more you think you know that name and that face. And I think it's a proven fact. Mark Forbes will tell you this, that people would rather vote for people they don't like than people they don't know. So the incumbent has a tremendous advantage. And then, of course, the incumbent has the advantage of handing out whatever good ones, whatever goodies are to be handed out, a lot of good photo ops, etc., even in normal times. And, of course, this was not normal times when the governor had over $1 billion worth of goodies to hand out. So, once again, when people get something from someone else, there's at least an underlying sense of gratitude. And kind of the way it works is if someone does you a favor, you kind of make a mark somewhere in your scorekeeping chit, and you figure, I kind of owe that person one back. So the governor handed out all of this money during the pandemic. Folks just naturally think, well, you know, I got all that money. I ought to vote for her, I guess. That was part of the problem. The second part of the problem was that Felix, in a sense, was running all by himself. What was the Republican message during this campaign? Vote Republican because if you do, this is what you can look forward to. Streets are going to be paved with gold. When you go to register your car, when you go to get renew your driver's license, you not only get a new driver's license, you're going to get a new car. No.
You know, when you first told me that you were going to go on a break, a sabbatical, because you had some things to do in the States,
yeah.
I was kind of concerned, too, because it was close to election season. And I was like, Bob, I don't want you to miss out on anything. He didn't miss out on anything.
I did not.
We were looking for this campaign. I was even going to put their picture on a couple of milk cartons just so everybody can help us look for the Camacho Ada campaign. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And there was no Republican message. You should vote for Republican because if you do, you will see a government that takes good care of your money. It's not going to be wasteful. It's not going to have a consigliere go and negotiate hotel contract, etc. You know, the Republican message, if you vote Republican, we'll tell you this. You're not going to have to deal with checkpoints out on Marine Corps Drive. But there was no Republican Party message. There were 15 different people, all of whom had a different approach. Some of them were pro-abortion. And so what it meant was that Felix was really out there running almost all by himself.
I sent you also a picture, pardon me for chiming in here. I sent you a picture of a bag that my mom had received on her door knob that had a Camacho at a campaign brochure, and it had a Leo and Camacho for AG brochure, and a Doug Moreland for AG brochure, and I think it was a Frank Blush Jr. brochure.
Yeah.
Where were the rest of the Republicans in that bag?
Yeah.
That was telling.
Really. Well, I had some fun yesterday. I was up at the Jigo polling place, as you know, doing a little guerrilla marketing there with my sign advertising the show. And someone came along with an armful of Leon Guerrero bags and said, "Here, would you like a bag?" And I said, "You know, the last thing I want to be is a bag man for the Leon Guerrero campaign." "Oh, you don't want a bag?" That person,
I don't hang it on your antenna.
Yeah, I don't think that person was a tailgater, because he certainly didn't catch the subtlety in my remarks. On the other hand, people were handing out Camacho Ada bags yesterday at the polling place. You know, I've been here before. Radio, television, social media, hats, caps, T-shirts, bags, beer can sleeves, coffee cups. No, it's a waste of your money. Going around knocking on doors, you can't knock on enough doors to make a difference. So, you know, if you're going to be an incumbent, you really got to screw your courage to a sticking post. And that didn't happen. Felix, I of course wanted Felix to win. Felix is a fine person. And, you know, maybe that's it. Maybe in this environment, up against this bloodthirsty, baby-killing governor, you can't be a fine person and expect to prevail. That's a very, very cynical, I know. But here we are. Next up, we have the congressional race. And frankly, I didn't think Jim could pull it off. And I made a lot of jokes about Jim's letter writing. The reason he wanted to go to Congress was not because he wanted to have an influence on the legislative process, but because he wanted the franking privilege, so he could write letters without having to pay for the stamps. But he not only won, he skunked Judy Wan-Pat-Ten. He beat her bad, 17,000 to 15,500, over 1,500 vote margin. And let's see, I got somebody trying. Before I go in too far into Wan-Pat versus Moylan here, let me check with our Fred and see what our Fred's got to tell us. Go ahead, our Fred. Our Fred, go ahead.
Hey.
Sir.
Judge.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Well, you know, the way you said it, the bloodthirsty and all, yeah, okay. That got me to call you. And I can't believe the route Guam took. And I guess they want 4 more years of the same thing. I did mention to you on the air that if you want change, I mean, how to vote for whoever you want to vote, simple. Just ask yourself, do you like the current situation? And I think everyone likes inflation, power rates, water rates going up, healthcare, GMH in shambles, education, public safety, crime, everything's up. And I guess we like the 4 more years of the same thing.
I sense though, our Fred, that people have been deluded into thinking that what they want is more freebies for 4 more years. And of course, that's not going to happen. The freebie train is going to go off the tracks very shortly.
Yeah, it's not going to be freebie anymore because it's the last 4 years, so there's no re-election. So things are different, right?
Yeah, and Uncle Sam is going to turn off the tap. There isn't going to be all that federal money pouring in here.
Yeah, the first 4 years about re-election. The next 4 is about all in for me, right? Isn't it? So, if everyone voted based on last name, my last name, or what's your last name, and Pari Malik stuff, and I guess Guam is just about 12,000 people important, not 160,000 people. It's only about 12,000 people, the Gov Guam voting bloc. That's all that matters on Guam.
Well,
all right, Guam, what else can we say, right, Judge?
That's
all right,
true,
Guam, you made your bed, sleep in it.
Okay, for our Fred, thanks for calling in.
All right.
That's our Fred. Let's take a short break here.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank presents internationally renowned slack key master, Ledward Ka'apana. Ledward Ka'apana, founding member of the legendary Hawaiian music group Hui Ohana, joined Grammy-nominated and multiple Nahoku Hanohano Award winner Ledward Ka'apana for 2 magical nights.
Saturday, November 12th, the Tsubaki Tower. Doors open at 6 p.m. And Sunday, November 13th, the Hotel Nico Guam. Doors open at 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Ambrose and at the door. $40 in advance and $50 at the door.
Slack Key Master Ledward Ka'apana, live on Guam, Saturday, November 12th and Sunday, November 13th.
Presented by Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank. Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting, The Point, Star 101, and Boss 104.
Okay, so here we go. Talking about Jim Moylan and Dr. Wanpat, Dr. Judy Wanpat. And I see Jim's victory over Wanpat as something that is worthy of celebration. Jim is perhaps not the most dramatic candidate that ever filed his papers at the Election Commission. You know, Jim had a little bit of a rough time with his own brother Republicans. He's done okay in senatorial elections. He hasn't exactly carved out a niche for himself in Guam politics. Now, Wanpat would have appeared to have all of the advantages. You know, she's been around forever. She has great name ID. She's got all kinds of paper credentials. Dr. Wanpat. She has been, she's been a teacher. She's a legacy politician. Her father, Antonio Bora Wanpat, was one of the most successful politicians in the history of Guam. He speaker many times. He bagged it as speaker in 1974 and was elected to an office that we created here. We elected someone to go to Washington and represent us, even though he was not a delegate to the United States House of Representatives. That was Wanpat. When Congress created the delegate position, Wanpat ran, won, held on to it for a long, long time. And it would be hard to find anybody on the island that doesn't know the name Wanpat. Judy had a sister that was elected, I think primarily based on name ID. Unfortunately, she died before she could be sworn in. So Juan Pat had the legacy, the name ID, plenty of terms in the legislature, etc. Jim is a newcomer, not exactly what you'd call a dramatic figure, but he beat her bad. And this is where I take, I take a certain amount of good news out of this, and that is that Juan Pat 10 led the Juan Pat 10 at the great salary smash and grab back in the 31st legislature. And I'm going to repeat it again, the shorthand version of it. The legislature at the beginning of the legislature raised salaries for village mayors and several government officials, but they didn't raise salaries for themselves or for the governor or lieutenant governor. Let's take a break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back to this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
This is a Fox News alert. A big Democrat pickup in the Senate. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Pennsylvania's open Senate seat has gone blue. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman beating Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. Fetterman, who suffered a stroke days before the primary election in May, telling supporters in Braddock, Pennsylvania,
I'm just so proud of the race that we ran. And, this campaign has always been about fighting for everyone who's ever been knocked down that ever got back up.
This is a Democrat pickup in the race for control of the Senate. Fetterman will take the seat that had been held by Republican Pat Toomey, who retired. Democrats now claiming 48 Senate seats to 47 for the Republicans. With 5 Senate races still to be decided, Republicans would need to win 4 of those to take control of the upper chamber. One of those 5 is Georgia, where incumbent Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock is holding on to a slim lead over Republican Herschel Walker. With about 97% of the votes counted, the winner needs more than 50% of the votes cast to avoid a runoff election next month. In Arizona, with about half of the votes counted, incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly is leading Republican Blake Masters. Also still to be decided, the Senate races in Nevada, Wisconsin, and in Alaska. With 91 House seats still to be decided, Republicans need to win at least 28 of them to take control of the House. Democrats would need to win 64 to maintain their control. Some Republican disappointments in some of the governor's races. The Fox News decision desk projecting Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be challenger Tudor Dixon. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul projected to be elected to the job, to which she ascended when former Governor Cuomo resigned in scandal, but challenger Republican Lee Zeldin not conceding.
So what's going to happen is that over the course of these next couple of hours, you're going to see the race continue to get closer and closer and closer and closer.
America is listening to Fox News.
Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank presents internationally renowned slack key master, Ledward Ka'apana. Ledward Ka'apana, founding member of the legendary Hawaiian music group Huio Hana, joined Grammy-nominated and multiple Nahoku Hano Award winner Ledward Ka'apana for 2 magical nights.
Saturday, November 12th, the Tsubaki Tower, doors open at 6 p.m. And Sunday, November 13th, the Hotel Nico Guam, doors open at 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Ambrose and at the door. $40 in advance and $50 at the door.
Slack key master Ledward Ka'apana, live on Guam, Saturday, November 12th and Sunday, November 13th.
Presented by Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank. Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting, The Point, Star 101, and Boss 104.
A big win for Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Tuesday. He beats Democrat challenger Beto O'Rourke.
I ran for the farmers and ranchers down here on the border who pleaded for a more secure border in the state of Texas. And I ran for the thousands of Texans who came up to me and they said, Governor, just keep Texas.
Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp has again beat Democrat challenger Stacey Abrams.
This election proves that when Republicans stay focused on real-world solutions that put hard-working people first, we can win now, but also in the future, y'all.
History has been made in Arkansas, where former White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders has become the first woman elected governor.
At the end of the day, this campaign was never about me. It was about each of you. It was about all of the people across the state of Arkansas, the people who showed up at our events, the people who made calls, the people who knocked doors, and frankly, even the people who did not vote for me.
A university in New York is cracking down on off-campus parties.
After a student reported being sexually assaulted over the weekend, along with 4 other recent reports of students being drugged off campus, Cornell University is temporarily suspending all fraternity parties. All of the suspected assaults occurred at registered fraternities at the Ivy League school. Several victims say they became incapacitated despite consuming little or no alcohol. Police reports indicate the alleged victims believe they were exposed to Rohypnol, a date rape drug known as roofies. Police investigations are ongoing. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
Turns out there was just one winning ticket sold in that massive Powerball jackpot that was supposed to be drawn Monday night but was delayed for more than 10 hours because of a technical problem with one of the participating lotteries. That winning ticket was sold northeast of Los Angeles. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Pacific Points is more rewarding with friends. Get 100 bonus points for every friend you refer that signs up and earns points. Both you and your friends will enjoy awesome perks like discounts on Shell fuel, rebates on your IT&E bills, vouchers at Foodies, and United Mileage Plus miles. Plus, earn more points to upgrade your membership tier and enjoy even more exclusive rewards. Learn more at PacificPoints.com. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
For a new place to hang out with your friends, let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
You know, Jose, when you run the Rogues Gallery during the halftime, I keep looking, wondering when I'm going to see Senator Chris Duenas there sporting his tailgater T-shirt.
Me too.
Has it shown and I just missed it, or?
I have not seen it in rotation yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Oh, hi, Chris.
Have a day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, and my favorite talk shows. Coming to a Rogues Gallery near you.
Uh-huh.
I have to admit that in all of my duties and responsibilities, I have neglected, but I will tell you, it will be one of the, I will wear that tailgater shirt proudly and be happy to have my Rogues Gallery display come up
well,
soon.
We're very anxious, Chris.
Your Honor, there's a lot of things that I pray for, but I'm going to pray even harder and harder now that you live until 150.
150.
We need you now more than ever. Tall tales must be on and prevail, because we did not prevail in changing the direction of our political process, unfortunately, yesterday. And so Tall Tales is even more vital to the people of Guam now, in order to be able to provide that additional check and balance that I hope to continue to try to provide in the legislature over the next 2 years. But I wanted to thank the listeners of The Point, and particularly the Tall Tales posse, for their vote, had they given me their vote, or just for voting, because my biggest concern, Your Honor, and I think you probably share this, is we have got to reverse this trend of low voter turnout. I don't know how we ascertain what the people are thinking, whether they're just sick and tired and don't think that anything's going to change, or they can't be bothered, or they're just as our Fred said, just as happy with the way things are going. And that concerns me greatly. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I have a sense that or perhaps there's a sense of futility that has overtaken the electorate. And I probably have talked about it myself here on the show, saying that if we continue with the same small group of political folks running this island in the legislature and in the administration, things are not going to change.
Correct.
And that, to me, the only way that we can break out of this is to have a part-time legislature made up of real citizens as opposed to government apparatchiks.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think an awful lot of people see it the same way that I do, that you could go and vote, and you can vote for different people, but the result is always going to be the same, because they're always going to be after the same thing, which probably doesn't coincide with their best interests.
Right. So I will be reintroducing that bill that Senator Moynihan and many of us introduced. I'm hoping to get some co-sponsors, and it is your bill. I mean, it's the complete apparatus of the part-time legislature. On the course of this campaign, Your Honor, a lot of people asked me why I was for a part-time legislature, and maybe we have to do this, Your Honor. Let me see if you agree with the way I explained this. I explained it that this is not a part-time legislature; it's part-time senators. The legislature will still and needs to be a co-equal branch of government that fundamentally functions for all the purposes of what it was designed to do, the three primary duties, which is have a professional staff that prepares a budget on an annual basis for, to be prepared and voted on in coordination with the governor's submittal. But it is the legislature that makes the final say on that budget, to confirm appointments that the governor will be sending down from time to time, particularly in this next couple of months as we go forward, and to introduce critical legislation. I say critical legislation that would be in the best interests of the people, that would be formulated properly, formatted by a professional legislature. It is the senators who will be part-time. It would not be their job. It would not be the fundamental responsibility that they have in their life, but they would set aside a certain amount of time every year to be able, during the year, to be able to perform their civic duty. So do you think that that's kind of accurate? And I tell you, I got a lot of great response from that.
Yeah, you're right on, because if you have examined the bill, you introduced the bill, it does create that legislative permanence, a classified staff, so it's not, it's not all, everything doesn't change every 2 years. There'd be a classified staff, a real professional staff to do the real work of the legislature. And you would have 15 people who are drawn from the community, who have real lives and don't survive off the political process, who, under my bill, would meet twice each year for 30 days in order to make laws and do what needs to be done, as opposed to what we have right now, which is, you know, for a full-time legislature, try to get anybody to come actually come to the building and talk to a constituent, and you'll find out what a fallacy it is.
Right. And the other part is that a very robust legal bureau. I mean,
yes.
that you know, you don't have this ad hoc construction of legislation. It doesn't even see the introduction until it's formatted properly, at least as to form and proper you know, introduction, and then is also you know, formatted for the proper placement in law and the like. And the one thing that I'm going to insist on, unfortunately, that we're in the minority again this time, is that we will have our, at least for this segment, we will insist on our legal counsel. You've absolutely pointed out the error in our ways. We relied on the legal bureau, and I'm not saying that they didn't do a good job, but the fact is that when there are disputes and other issues associated with differences between the majority, minority, or the governor's office, as you so wisely pointed out in the past, is that you know, bringing a plastic, not only just a butter knife, but a plastic knife to a gunfight is not the right thing to do.
All right, Chris. Yeah.
So I will be doing that going forward. But one other thing I wanted to mention to you is that I will be seeking the wisdom of the great Bob Klitzkie to. Also, I'm going to spend the next couple of years. I have other things to do in life. I more than likely this I thank the people of Guam for giving me this opportunity. Unless something drastically changes, I will not be seeking office again. But I want to spend a lot of time getting candidates who really want to serve, particularly in a part-time legislature, and working with and take them to the school of Bob Klitzkie and others to kind of you know, formulate your ideas and understand that, you know, like you've mentioned before, running for office, you simply cannot do it 3 months before filing your papers and the like, and think that for any reason, unless you got, you know, $200,000 to flood the airwaves with who you are, and even then it might not work. You've got to have all of the mechanisms whereby you get people to know and have a feel for you, who you are, and know you, and or you at least feel like they know you when they go in to mark the ballot. And I want to do some recruiting, because I think it's very, it to me, and like you have done, I think it's important for us to give back and to try to let candidates who really honorably want to serve to have to understand the mechanics of doing this. And it's very intense and it's very difficult. You know, as you can see now, I mean, there were a lot of good candidates who didn't make it, but there's a lot of effort that goes in to letting the people of Guam know who you are, what your plans are, and to be able to vote for you. So I hope you'll help me in that endeavor. I'd be more than happy to help you out with that, Chris, for sure. Right on. Well, I love Tall Tales, and I will definitely be sporting my my shirt for the Rogues Gallery soon, and looking forward to getting together with you. And when Jose answered the phone, I said, Jose for senator. So if he becomes a senator, I'm sorry, it's my fault. Okay, good talking to you, Chris. Take care, Your Honor, and always glad to be with you. And like I said, the vitalness of your show is even more important now, in the fact that I think most of us are somewhat disappointed with the outcome. Take care, my friend. Okay, sir. Yeah, well, we're going to be here, aren't we, Jose? Yeah, so Absolutely. Let's see. I got another Joe on the line here. Another Joe. No, not Compact. The Heartbeat Act. Go ahead, another Joe.
Bob, I vote Jose. It isn't I vote Pedro. It's I vote Jose.
All right.
But yeah, I wanted to comment about, so if the senators and the health committee aren't going to, then they need 7 votes to get it out of the health committee, and for it to continue on its process wherever it goes from the health committee to, I don't know, it's back to committee rules or straight to the session floor for whenever they have the next session. They need 2 more senators, my understanding, and in the health committee, 5 of them voted for it. They need 2 more. The 4, I think, who did not vote for it to continue on the process of becoming a law was, I think, Amanda Shelton, Tina Winya Barnes, Savina Perez, and Peter Terlahi. So
Shelton did not vote for it?
Word of mouth, to my understanding, she did not vote.
It was her bill.
So if that's true, then we need to ask what's going on here, because we got maybe one or I don't know if it's two more or one more session until the end of the 36th Guam legislature. At least have a debate or a discussion and see what's going on. How can it be improved? If you want to table it, whatever the case is, let us know. Some transparency. So the other thing that's brought up is hopefully sometime around the 23rd when the official results for the 2022 election is in. There's no doubt it's Doug Moylan, then you can have him on the radio. You're showing all the other shows and say what's plan here. AG, you're going to dissolve that injunction or what? So that you can start enforcing Public Law 20-134. So I just want to chime in on that. I just keep listening.
Okay, another Joe.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought Shelton. I think another Joe's mistaken there.
Well, Shelton is I think she's a co-author, co-sponsor.
Co-sponsor. Nelson.
Nelson was the one who.
Nelson, Shelton, and.
Duenas and Blas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So in order to report a bill out of committee, a majority of the members of the committee have to vote to do pass or to report out only. That's the way it works. And if you don't have a majority that marked that sheet like that, then it's not going to go anywhere. If it does, then it's sent to the Committee on Rules. The Committee on Rules may or may not do anything with it. A senator always has the ability during the portion of the session called motions to stand up and say, I make a motion, I move that the heartbeat bill be placed at the top of today's agenda. And if you can get a majority of the members present to vote for it, that's exactly what happens. And sometimes that does happen. But, an awful lot of being an effective senator is kind of like, being a baseball pitcher. A pitcher stands out on the mound and he throws the ball to the catcher, right? Is that all he does? No, he's looking, he stretches, he looks at first base, he looks at third base. He kind of baits the runner to come off first base or not, and he steps off the rubber, right? And he goes through this little dance to try to get things maneuvered around to the point where he can throw the ball to the catcher and the batter is not going to hit the ball. He doesn't just stand out there and throw the ball. And that's what I see an awful lot of our senators doing. They don't understand, the craft that they're involved in. And the fact that you don't think that you're going to be able to do something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. The fact that the pitcher can't throw the runner out at first base doesn't mean that every once in a while he doesn't throw the ball over the first baseman to keep that runner close to the bag. So, a skillful senator will, if he can't get his bill on through the Rules Committee, stand up and make a motion. I move that the heartbeat bill be placed at the top of today's agenda. And when it comes time to argue his motion, he lays it all out. But to just say, well, I introduced the bill, but I didn't have the votes. You might as well stay home. Do it virtually, because you're not going to be effective. Okay, I left off with Jim Moylan versus Judy Wonpat 10, and I was explaining the whole Wonpat 10 kerfuffle here. The legislature gave several raises at the beginning of the legislature, including the village mayors. They did not give themselves raises. They did not give the governor and lieutenant governor raises. Like 10 days after the election in November, 2 years later, when it was safe, then the lieutenant governor, acting as governor, sent a bill to the legislature providing language that would raise senatorial salaries from $55,307 to $85,000, and a raise of the same proportion for the governor and lieutenant governor. So he sent that over, and the Organic Act says the governor can introduce legislation. And at the same time, he called the legislature into session, another Organic Act power of our governor. So he called them into session. Judy Wonpat called the session to order. The first thing she did was put the salary increase bill on the agenda. Very little discussion. In less than an hour, it passed because there were no amendments. The bill didn't need to be engrossed. It was enrolled, signed, sent to acting Governor Tenorio, who signed it that same afternoon. Now, the standing rules of the legislature say that before a bill can go to the floor, there must be a public hearing. No public hearing on this bill, but there is an escape hatch, and that says that if the speaker attests that the public health, safety, etc., could be endangered by having a public hearing, then she can certify that the public hearing isn't necessary. She didn't do that. She was so anxious to get it going. So it went through, and even though the legislature was short on funds, the money appeared in their checks before Christmas. Retroactive, about 25 grand retroactive back to the beginning of that session of the legislature. And the furor erupted. And at the time it erupted, my analysis was, well, you know, this is the way senators think. Yeah, there'll be a lot of heartburn right now. People will be really angry for a couple of weeks, but they'll forget. And everybody's going to get reelected. No harm, no foul. Well, of course, the election was over. So in the next session of the legislature, this is where Mike San Nicolas kind of made his bones. Mike San Nicolas and the San Nicolas posse of 5 people took every possible angle at trying to roll those salaries back. And the Wonpat and the others dug their heels in and fought it tooth and nail. A lot of really strategic maneuvers so that everyone could say, yeah, I voted to roll my own salary back. Constructing bills that had poison pills in them. So, you know, you put together a bill that rolls the mayor's salaries back along with your own salary. It comes to the floor. You're not going to get 8 senators to roll the mayor's salaries back, so it didn't pass. But Wonpat lost. You know, Wonpat and 6 other senators lost at the end of that session based on the Wonpat 10 and their salary smash and grab. And at the time, I said, I don't think people are going to forget this time around. I said, I damn sure am not going to forget. And if she ever runs for anything again, it will be my job to bring it to the people's attention, which is exactly what I did. Jim Moylan, 17,075. Dr. Judy Wonpat, 15,427. So I think it's safe to say that this is the end of the political career of Dr. Judy Wonpat. And it's hard to say where Jim Moylan is going to be able to go now because he's a giant killer. Yeah. Okay, I got somebody in the green room here. Let me take a check and see who it is. Yeah, it's Frenchie. He wants to talk about yesterday's election in general. We'll head for Edgeworth for Wrigley Field, and then we'll come back to Frenchie. And I'll let Frenchie go first, and then I'll give my general impressions.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle. Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits. Morning Radio gives Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Okay, so here we are, back at Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs, the world's most beautiful ballpark. And who do I stumble into out here in the center field bleachers? None other than Frenchie. So, Frenchie, tell us about the election.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit what we had said at the primary. At the primary, we said, you know, if the turnout is not good, Lou will have a huge advantage, which is exactly what happened. And the other thing that I said that the Republican needed to do was to reach out to the crossover voters, the independents, if we have any on Guam, and the disgruntled Democrats, which were represented by Agun, San Nicolas, and Ananich. And they were all pissed at Lou with good reason, because she, in the case of all three, she threw them out under the bus because they were not as compliant as she would like people to be. So basically, it shows that during this election, outside of Jim Moylan, which you just talked about, the Republicans have failed to do that. And a lot of people made fun out of Jim, but when I was doing the fundraising for senators and for Jim and for the governor, one thing that struck me was that at Jim Moylan's fundraiser, there were people from across the board. They were Democrats, and there were things like that. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Let's see if they'll go out and vote for him. And basically what you have in his victory over one path is two things. One, they were polar opposite on their positions. One path is pro-independence, anti-military, and everything, and a lot of people do not, especially the veterans on the island, do not like that. And on the opposite, Jim Moylan, which a lot of people accuse of being spineless, actually shows some spine when he refused to kowtow to the pro-independence group regarding the military expansion and the independence vote. And I think he got quite a lot of people crossover for him. And if you look at the result, he's the only Republican over 15,000 votes, besides Frank Blass. And Frank Blass is kind of part of the furniture in the Senate. But so Jim is at 17,000. He's the best score getter of the GOP bunch. That's very interesting. Now, if you look at the rest of the field, you have two anomalies. One is Therese Terlaje, who gets the most vote of any officials on the island with 21, almost 22,000, 21,800 and something. And then, of course, the other one is Chris Barnett, who is new in the political arena, but benefited of his aura of local celebrity. But then after that, you go down to the only two people that get in the 17,000 vote range is Amanda Shelton, who is a young leader from the Democrats, and I think it's her third turn on the Ferris wheel, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And then St. Augustine, who is running on his father's reputation and is well-liked in the Jigo area and so on. So besides those two, then this is it. After that, you fall to 15,000, which is Frank Blas. And the only newcomer Republican that does quite well, and he's in the Felix Ranch, he's in the 14,000 vote getter, right? So he breached the glass ceiling for a newcomer and did quite well. But that's one thing that Fisher did that the other Republicans didn't do, is that he campaigned in the primary quite heavily. He put his name out there. He had commercials online, on the radio, and things, a few signs here and there, the minimum, but he did quite well. And so his name was out there before the second round. While most of the other senators on the Republican side were very lazy in the primary because they had only 15 candidates. So they were all going to go on the second round. On the Democratic side, this is not what happened. And you have two big earth-shattering things, is that we have two young Democrats. Roy Kenyatta, the one with the big lips on that you criticize for posting, he was the first one with the signs outside and everything. And Will Parkinson, who used his father's name and also is actually very witty and did some reach over to the Republicans that are middle of the road. But Kenyatta is actually quite interesting because he's a debater. He went out there, he's entertaining. Now, I don't agree with anything of the things he's standing for, but you have to recognize that he has quality as a campaigner. And they arrived both 8 and 9. And the only two Republicans ahead of him is Frank Blas and Tom Fisher. And they are ahead of Chris Duenas, who is below 14,000 votes. So that's very interesting. And that's one thing that the Republicans didn't do, is that even though they said they would reach over, and they did at the high level, they didn't reach over to the crossover voter on the ground level. And the other thing they didn't do, they didn't support their Senate candidates. And I saw that on the ground during the fundraisers and the get-together. The senators were on their own. And some of them did a fairly good job. And some of them even told me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get on this time because I didn't campaign in the primary and I think it was a mistake. And I said, you're right. Fisher did campaign, and you see the difference. Fisher is at 14,000, and the next of the other ones, they are under 10,000 votes, or they are at between 10 and 11,000. The last Republican to be elected is J.C. Lujan, who is kind of also a local celebrity, but he barely makes it. He barely beats Katie Marsh Titano. And Katie Marsh beats Ray's sister, Mana, I forgot how you say it, who barely, the way I saw her in the campaign is that she thought she was going to get elected just because she was there. She was kind of a little Chamorro princess, and she thought she was a shoo-in. And a lot of the Republicans, including Chris Duenas, who is the leaders in the Senate, thought she was going to get elected, and they had a chance to have 9, and they didn't. They're at 6. So the Democrats flipped over that opportunity they have. The only good news is that Tito Terlare got kicked out. And I think a lot of the noise from the skeletons in his closet finally became so loud that a lot of people said, the heck with this guy, we'll elect somebody younger and more appealing. And so you have new guys, and then you have a maverick. interesting guy. I think it's going to be interesting to watch him. Is that Gwen St. Nicholas? He's a big guy. He's kind of a bit larger than nature. He was close to 13,000 votes. I think 12,777. So if you are Chinese, you probably think it's very lucky. And then Sabina Perez, the CCP candidate, she got reelected. She's the most dangerous out of the thing. But then if you are pro-life, the election of Roy Kenyatta and Will Parkinson is not good news. Those guys are very pro-choice. And so this is interesting. The age gap that is building between the Democrats and the Republicans is very something we should look at. The Republicans didn't reach enough to the crossover voters like we had kind of diagnosed was necessary in order to win. And the only guy that did it was Jim Moylan, and his cousin did it also in a different way. But it looks like he might have pulled the feather out of his hat on that one and actually succeeded in getting reelected. So it's interesting. It raised a lot of challenges for the Republicans. At the beginning, I think they said all the right thing, but they didn't deliver. And Juan Carlos is more geared towards Washington, D.C. than he is towards Guam. And he kind of poo-poo a lot of the local candidates like Ken Leon Guerrero and other people instead of helping them with the fundraisers and all those things. And you have guys like, what's his name? Several of the young candidates like Listra and others, Vince Borja, who had a chance, but they didn't campaign in the primary, which I think really did it for them because the Democrats did campaign. And you see the difference with Roy Kenyatta, Will Parkinson. Those two, we will hear about them for a long time. They are young, they're hungry, and they are very militant. So we see those people. Sabina Perez will continue being below the radar and do her destructive work. And the only good news is really Pido Terlari got kicked out. Lou gets 18,000 votes, but she's not the most popular Democrat. We see Thierry Sterlari and Chris Barnett beat her handedly. And even Joe St. Augustine is quite close. And Amanda Shelton, who is still very young. She's only 31, I believe, right? So the Democrats have an advantage is that they have young replacements. The Republicans don't. And they need to wake up and smell the coffee.
Very good analysis, Frenchie. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
All right. So let's head for Churchill Downs, and then I'll come back and work a little bit more on my analysis.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mixed Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lico Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Sojas. Get Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Churchill Downs, call to the post. The last lap here on Tall Tales, 6 furlongs, and I'll be crossing the finish line on my way out of here until tomorrow. So I want to go back again to Jim Moylan and Judy Wampat. Jim Moylan said that when it comes to the political status of the island, he thought everyone should vote. Wampat was adamant that this is the inalienable right of Chamorro. So Judy Wampat played the identity politics game. Jim didn't. Jim has been pro-military. Judy was anti-military, going all the way back to the closed-door meeting with the 2 United States senators and 5 members of the Guam legislature. So she's pretty well made her bones on being anti-military. So I'd like to read that into the results here, that most of the folks on the island are not there, are not where Judy Wampat is. And picking up on Frenchie's analysis here, Jim Moylan appears to be the power of the Republican Party. He got the most votes, went up against a worthy opponent, beat her handily.
What was his title again when he first came into office that was removed from him? The
Minority Leader.
Minority Leader, yep.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a good thing.
Yeah, maybe. But he's a force to be reckoned with for the next couple of years, that's for sure. Judy Wampat is out of the game. We then go to Therese Trelaw, who is obviously the most popular politician on the island right now, which would allow her to accomplish some things that would be out of reach for others. As an example, she got knee deep into the mandatory medical malpractice arbitration statute that became an extremely emotional issue after the death of David Lebowski's son. And she had a bill to do away with it. A lot of public hearings, a lot of heat, a lot of contentious argument. And then she dropped it like a hot potato and never picked it up again. So given her popularity and the political capital that she has the ability to do something salutary with that issue if she wants to. If she wants to just play it safe and protect that big margin, well, then it won't happen. Of course, we always have to wonder about anyone who runs for public office. Is that person looking for a notch up? Does Therese have the ambition of someday being the governor? We don't know. And then, of course, she got more votes than Lulian Guerrero, and I think it's no secret that Lulian Guerrero was not happy when Therese was able, with the assistance of the Republicans, to be elected Speaker instead of Tina Rose Munya Barnes, who would have been the Democrat governor favorite for that position. So Therese will have a certain cachet in the next legislature. Going to be very interesting to see what, if anything, she does with it, because she could rally enough support to really take on the governor on some of the things that we don't like this. We're still going to be in the emergency into next year. And we got Chris Malfunction, certainly a real wild card. I don't have any predictions for Chris Malfunction whatsoever as to where he's going to go. I know he's not in favor of a part-time legislature. He came from He came from radio. He started out as a radio comedian, matured from that into an investigative reporter, and now he was the second highest vote getter in this election, 21,278 votes, which gives him the opportunity to do great things. However, there is a learning curve in being a senator. You don't walk in, raise your hand, and get sworn in and know everything you need to know about being an effective senator, which means that Chris is going to have some kind of a mentor. Will it be someone who's already in the legislature, someone from outside? How much will that person have an influence on Chris Malfunction? And with someone like Chris Malfunction, there's always the danger of, if you take a piece of rock that's kind of attractive because of its shape, and you polish it too hard and remove all the rough edges from the rock, you've kind of destroyed the attractiveness of the rock. Amanda Shelton. The good news there is Amanda Shelton is definitely anti-abortion. And the fact that someone who's anti-abortion could draw 17,707 votes, got to be good news. Oh, St. Augustine also is anti-abortion. He wants to make the 3 exceptions, which I don't agree with, but it's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. So I'd have to say that's good news. Tina Rose Munya Barnes flubbed up the whole insular cases thing so bad that, as far as I'm concerned, she's irredeemable. That if you can't figure things out like that, if you're just going to go with the flow, go with the crowd, listen to the song for a little while and then sing it yourself, not a good idea. Frenchie kind of named... put a handle on Frank Blas Jr. He's kind of like part of the furniture over at the legislature. Yeah, you can't depend on him for anything too dynamic. I thought he really flubbed the whole matter of the teacher pay raises. And the GFT by 2/3 to 1/3 endorsed Lou's candidacy. And that can't have had anything to do with the fact that Frank Blas appeared to be in opposition to giving the teachers raises. He wasn't, but it's one of those issues that you have to handle very carefully or it's going to blow up in your face. Tom Fisher, I think a lawyer has a definite advantage when he runs for the legislature. Voters are looking for someone with a common touch, someone that's like them, identifies with their problems, their struggles, their joys, their happiness, etc. But deep inside, I think most voters want someone that's just a little bit better than themselves, someone a little smarter than they are. And that certainly would be the public image of a lawyer. Well, the guy must be pretty smart. He's a lawyer. Little do they know. Yeah, he went to law school and he's a lawyer, etc. Then Roy Kanata, I have real mixed emotions about Roy's success here. First of all, he worked for Senator Shelton. The worst thing you can do is take someone from that swamp and put him in office. Because Roy will come in with all the bad habits that he learned as an employee of the legislature. Like, the legislature workday starts at 8, but you don't have to be there at 8. You can come in at 9:15 if you want to. And it's okay to cook breakfast after you get there. And, payday, you can leave, or on and on and on and on and on. And you don't need that kind of a mindset from someone who's going to be sworn in as a senator. Roy is obviously pro-abortion, probably pro most of the things I'm anti on. He didn't really campaign. I'm surprised that he was successful as he was.
He had that one burger incident.
Yeah.
on his campaign sign.
Yeah.
It was good in earned media.
Yeah, it worked very well for him. and he had big pictures of himself all over the island. Now, if he were
ever since,
if he were as good looking as, no, I'm not going to say it. That might have worked to his advantage, but Roy, I don't think Hollywood scouts are going to be around signing up Roy to be in the next romantic comedy coming out of Hollywood.
Maybe for their promotional material.
Maybe, yeah. So I'm not quite clear as to how he finished as high as he did. He finished 8th. However, the part that I do like is that a challenger can come out of nowhere and get elected, because when it comes to challengers versus incumbents, I have a strong bias pro-challenger, because the incumbents set everything up to their own advantage, and it's hard to take an incumbent out. And ordinarily, the longer a person is there, the worse he becomes. So new blood is essential to the legislature. So I'm glad to see, the classic example of new blood, Roy Kanata, come in there and finish 8th. Will Parkinson, I peg Will Parkinson as an opportunist. Someone who is going to say the right thing, to strike the responsible chord with the voting electorate, and take it and see where it goes. Now, I did mention the other day that I like what I like about him is he's in business. He deals in gold and diamonds. This is a guy who ought to have a pretty good basic understanding of economics. Next, we've got Chris Duenas, number 10. Chris is the strength of the minority, and as Frenchie so poignantly pointed out, the Republicans don't have a strong bench. They have an aging infield. They don't seem to have the farm team that's bringing up the younger players to replace these guys. Chris already said this may be his last hurrah. The Republican Party needs to go out and start finding some people, say from 30 to 45, who have the right stuff and the right inclination, and start grooming them for positions in the legislature. Otherwise, they're just going to keep sliding farther and farther behind, because, as Frenchie pointed out, there are young folks on the Democrat side. Dwayne Zen Nicholas. I don't know who Dwayne Zen Nicholas is. I never heard of him. I never saw him. How Dwayne Zen Nicholas finished number 11, I can't even guess.
I really congratulate him on that. I'm curious of the voter who put their circle, their mark on his name. Did they know him? Did they just not know him, and that's why they voted him in? Because we had a lot of candidates that nobody knew. Why him?
Yeah. Yeah, no campaign, no nothing. Yeah.
There was one thing that was a positive for him. He had a beard.
Yeah.
He called himself the Santa Claus of the South.
That's right.
Maybe I do need to run. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, maybe we can give him a tailgater T-shirt if he'll wear it, for some of his promos.
I'm going to submit my beard for candidacy.
There you go. Yeah. So then Tello, was taken out, made a comeback, came in number 12. Tello's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, certainly, but she, because of her contentiousness, does get a lot of earned media. And, that's what we got. That's what we got to play the game with. Frenchie has pretty well laid it out on Sabina Paris, the environmental wacko, anti-military Democrat in the mix.
She's a former Simon Sanchez high school teacher. She has a lot of voters already. That's my theory.
Okay. And then Joanne Brown and Jesse Lujan, who have been around for a long, long time, and slid in 14th and 15th. This certainly gives the lie to the Daily News story. When people that have been around this long, these are familiar faces, but just barely making it in, suggesting that the familiarity of their faces, it wasn't the key for them. Now, I'm glad they're both in, and certainly Joanne Brown is the only one in the legislature who seems to be interested in fighting what I would call corruption, cronyism, whatever. Then we've got Kelly Marsh Titano, who is a perpetual number 16. She was number 16 last time. She's number 16 this time. Maybe she'll give it a shot next time around. See if she can land number 16. I think the odds were in favor of Mana Silva Tyrone being elected. You know, she's on the point, a fair amount of exposure. Former senator, pretty well known on the island. I don't know how much Mana campaigned. I don't think very much. As a general principle, if you don't campaign, you're probably not going to get elected. Then we have Sarah Thomas Nediduk, who is part of the political establishment. She's never been elected, but she's been in and out of a lot of administrations.
And she's attempted before.
And she's tried it before. I'm going to hold it there. We'll come back to this tomorrow with Jonathan Savaris. But right now I've got to say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
This is a Fox News alert. The Republican House leader says the GOP will control. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The man who would be Speaker, California Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
It is clear that we are going to take the House back.
But that Republican majority, if it comes to pass, will likely be smaller than earlier projections, possibly in single digits. And Republican hopes to take control of the Senate may be dashed. Right now, each party is claiming 48 Senate seats, with 4 seats still in play. Republicans would have to win 3 of them. The Senate is currently split 50-50, but the Democrats have the tiebreaker in the vice president. Republicans have lost a Senate seat from Pennsylvania with Democrat John Fetterman's win there.
I never expected that we were going to turn these red counties blue, but we did what we needed to do.
Fetterman beating Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz by less than 2.5%. The Georgia Senate race is still a virtual dead heat, with incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock leading Republican Herschel Walker by less than 1%, with nearly 97% of the votes counted. No calls yet in the races in Arizona, Nevada, or in Wisconsin, where incumbent Republican Ron Johnson leads by 1.5 points with about 93% of the votes in. Republican governors Abbott, DeSantis, and Kemp have been reelected by substantial margins in Texas, Florida, and Georgia. But New York's Governor Kathy Hochul has survived a challenge from Republican Lee Zeldin. And Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer has also been reelected.
We have come a long way, Michigan. We are thrilled at the unexpected high turnout. We are thrilled that the 3 ballot initiatives got passed.
Whitmer beating Republican Tudor Dixon. Some of the issues decided Tuesday. Voters in Nebraska approving a requirement for photo ID for future elections. Ohio voters approving an amendment to the state constitution, preventing cities from allowing anyone but citizens to vote. America's listening to Fox News.
It all started with the brutal murder of a young married couple. Now, more than 40 years after the couple was found, investigators and forensic genealogists are cracking the case wide open to uncover a stunning second mystery.
Where's the baby?
I said, well, wait, he had